All right, welcome back. I have enjoyed looking at your guys' examples of contrast. I'm doing this before Thursday, so we haven't yet talked in our Zoom or our Google Meetup, I guess it's called, about your examples of contrast. But I look forward to seeing you guys in that and seeing you share those as well. A reminder that you don't have to attend the live session if you're not able to, but if you're online during our session time, um, pop in, man. It'd be good to see you. And you can just share your example and talk about it. And that's it. All right, we're on to our second rule. The second rule of graphic design is the rule of repetition. And it's a real simple, that's one that's pretty easy to understand. Repetition means repeat. And there's that word from the contrast definition again, elements. Elements in a design that repeat to create visual interest. So in a design, if you have, for example, you see there on the list, colors, fonts, shapes, images that are striking, that are interesting, think about maybe reusing them somewhere in your design. Our eyes like repetition. That's why clothes and wallpaper and carpeting and bedding, all those things use repeated patterns because they're interesting to look at. And in graphic design, that is true as well. Like this design on the screen, they've got these triangles, they flipped them, they filled them, but it's still that shape that kind of draws our eye through the design. That's a repeated shape. You can repeat colors, you can repeat the same font. As a matter of fact, you don't want to use a whole bunch of different fonts. Use maybe 2 fonts in a design and you'll have contrast, but then you'll also have repetition. And that brings us to the second thing for repetition. There's 2 parts to repetition. One, repetition is visually interesting. When we look at something that has repetition, like all these little lines in this design coming out of the text, that's cool. I look at it and I'm kind of curious and I want to look at it a little bit more. But the other main thing is that repetition is organizational. Look at all of that text going down in this poster here. That's all this text in yellow. Okay. Well, it's all yellow. One reason is because it's next to the yellow line. It matches the yellow line. But then all of that text is also the same color. It's the same font. It's the same size. So I know that that's all related. It all goes together. And that's important. Visually, I can tell a lot by the things that are the same. And the rule of repetition is important to help organize my design. Here's an example of repetition that's really fun and interesting. Even before I read it, I see all of the shapes, the apps, and then I look at it a little bit more closely and I see that it's actually a really serious ad. It's like an anti-bullying ad talking about bullying on social media. If you look at the bottom, look at the text at the bottom. It stands out because of contrast, that white text. But also, it's how it's all caps. And the font matches the font for the organization that is making the ad. You look at their logo over to the right and you see where it says their slogan, "Make a change," right? Same font. There's that repetition. In these designs, look at the colors that repeat. These are 2 separate posters. There's one on the left that's black and all of that yellow, but then look at all of the repeated shapes, the bulb shapes, the window shapes, and then the one on the right, there's kind of like 4 basic colors that repeat over and over again, and also the repeated rectangles. This design is all about rectangles. These are both pieces of artwork done by Andy Warhol. He's famous for taking an image and then repeating it over and over again in his designs. You got the Campbell soup can, which he used over and over and over and over again in his work. And then on the right, you've got a screen print of Che Guevara reprinted 9 different ways in different colors. One neon screen printed picture would be kind of interesting to hang on your wall, but when you repeat them like that, it becomes something kind of different and even more striking. This design here, you can see the repeated, where the white sticks out, you know, kind of splits everything up. The font, that where it says Saul Bass, that font kind of matches some of the text in some of his movie posters, like Vertigo. And the colors, that orange color from the Vertigo movie poster is repeated up at the top. Let's look at this one. It's a really very, very simple, very minimalist design of a bicycle. And look at the what do you call those things that you pedal? That was a hard one for me to come up with. Look at those pedals. They're just two exactly the same rectangles repeated. The simple colors. It's a pretty cool design. Oh, and that's those examples. Let me go to a book that I stole a lot of this stuff out of. The book is called The Non-Designer's Design Book. And the author, she's got some good stuff in here. Look at these two business cards. The one on the top looks, you know, pretty solid, right? The name there, and it's got all the text, and it repeats the same font all the way through. But if you look at the second one, they repeat that bold type at the bottom, and it kind of keeps you in that space on that card. Your eye kind of bounces back and forth between the title, the name of the company, and the phone number. On this one, this whole page is the same font, the first one. It's got some bigger type and some bolder type. They're getting some contrast that way. But look at the one down there. Now they've got a different font, so you got that contrast, but then that organization kicks in, because everywhere that font repeats, I know that these are subheads, and I know that they're related, and they stand out more. And as I go through, say this is a textbook, as I go through this whole book, every time I see that text with that different font, I'm going to know that that's a new subhead. Same idea here and here. Okay, now look, this is repetition throughout a series of designs. This is a stationery set. It's got their stationery, their letterhead, and then it's got their business card, and it's got their envelope, and you can see how they use the same color paper, they use the same font, the same color ink, all the way through, so that even if you didn't read the text, your eye would know that that is Red Hen. You know, just because of all of the shapes and colors, you would recognize it right away. And if you think about, you know, famous brands, you know that that's true. You know what Pepsi looks like even without reading the words Pepsi. All right, that's enough of that one. I want to show some very current designs, and then we'll be done here. Again, these are very current, so a lot of them are COVID related. I like this one, Heroes Wear Masks, and it's got the, obviously, you know, Batman, very minimalist Batman, but look at that grain, you know, that kind of that gray fuzziness on the mask and on his chest there. That repeats over onto the green as well. The Be a Hero, hashtag Be a Hero, is the same font as the Heroes Wear Masks. So yeah, this is simple. Oh, and the color, right? The Heroes Wear Masks, the white kind of matches the white background on the other side. That's not a mistake, right? They're going real simple and keeping that repetition. Oh, and then the green matches the green of his eyes, right? A lot of cool stuff there. Okay, here's the next one. For those who always see the glasses half full, staying home is the best option. And looks like to me they want to have you get their beer delivered. Looks like a beer company, and they've got their phone number there. Not a U.S. phone number for sure. But you know, look at those repeated shapes. You know, it's like those Warhols. You know, over and over again, the repeated shapes is pretty striking, pretty interesting. Here, you know, the white repeats. Even the color here, this kind of gold color, you know, kind of matches these windows over here. I thought this one was pretty cool. First of all, the repeated circles are interesting. Kind of grabs your eye. The contrast, it's just pure white, only a little bit on the page. It really stands out. You actually, in order to get it, you have to read the text. Audi. So if you know what the Audi logo looks like, it's these four interlocking rings. And, to kind of go along with the COVID theme, they've got the rings being socially distant. It's pretty clever. And this last one is a good example of showing a series, sort of like that stationary set. So interior, which I don't care for the way you have to read this. I think it's really hard to read. It took me a second. Samsung has made a TV that they call the Serif TV. And the letter I, if you look at the TV from the side angle, like they've drawn it here, it looks like an I. It's got these little things that stick out on the top and bottom like a serif I. So it's called the serif because of these little things, which in type is called a serif. And then it's got these feet. So this really looks like a kind of a mid-century, like a 1950s or 1960s, design. But obviously it's a brand new flat screen, really nice TV. Okay, so their design for the ad uses this serif font, where the I is actually the side view of their TV. So that's cool. But then you see the interior one, and then they've got another one that says furniture, and it's got the same I in there, and the same weird, making you work a little bit. This one's easier to read than that last one. Okay, same very basic one color with white type design. And then one more. See, I really don't care for what they're doing with the type. I read Liro Viom but okay, living room. But the repetition, same flat color background, the white text, the I with the legs on it. I would know that this is an ad for the Samsung Serif after I've seen it once or twice, even without reading it. I would just know that color, that font, the little legs. I'd be like, oh, that's that TV. I would know because of repetition. Okay, I bet you guys can guess what your assignment's going to be. After these first two, next week, they'll be a little bit more complicated. An assignment, I'll have a little bit of a video for you to watch, but nothing's going to be too complicated in this class. Don't sweat it. I should tell you that there will be a quiz at week 3 over the 5 rules. So there will be a quiz for you to take. Again, if you have watched all these videos and jotted down the definitions and jotted down some notes, you'll be fine. It's not going to be too complicated. So if you got the notes from contrast and the notes from repetition, you're on your way. So what I want you to do is I want you to find a good example of repetition. Now, when you guys handed in your contrast examples, I had 2 or 3 people hand in the picture, but no explanation. Be specific. Use vocab words. Somebody handed in, they said this is a good example of contrast because of the color. Well, you're almost there, but explain what about the color. Like if I was talking about this one right here, this living room, I would say this is a good example of contrast because the solid color makes the white text really stand out. So they're using the element of the color element to create contrast. Okay? Or I could say there's contrast in this design because of the really big type of the headline and then the very small type down here for the name of the TV. There's contrasting size. Okay, when it comes to repetition, when you're talking about it, I want you to talk about what element repeats. In this case, you could say that the font repeats. You could say that this shape with the little eye and the legs repeats. This little picture down here of the TV with the Serif TV, this whole thing repeats. The Samsung logo is always in the same spot. That repeats. Okay, so just look at the things in the design that repeat, and when you hand in your picture, type a sentence or 2 that explains what is being repeated in the design. And that's all there is to it. All right. I look forward to seeing your guys' example of repetition. If you haven't done examples of contrast yet, go ahead and look at that assignment, watch that video, and get those handed in for me too. Great. Thanks a lot, guys. We'll see you around.